It seemed like everybody enjoyed my video where I told some thrifting stories about my childhood. I've had to um, give a family member a ride to the doctor, so I'm just sitting out in the parking lot killing time. And I had something else that came to my mind. I mentioned about my stepdad did estate auctions, and there's just such a great picture that someone from the newspaper took of him auctioning, and we had it framed hanging in our den. And I'm assuming it got ruined in the fire. Not everything got ruined, but most things did. And I am hoping there's another copy of that because it was just such a good photo that I wish I could find to show you guys. But at one of this estate sales, it was probably the nicest home that I ever recall doing an estate sale for. And, my stepdad worked full time in addition to his um, auctioneering that he did. And he also was retired from the Air Force. So he was a hard worker. And when he did these estate sales, he would go through and like people that if they did at a regular estate sale that wasn't an estate auction, you go through and sort and organize. And he was a very organized type person, so he had everything very prepared before the auction. And so of course I would get basically like I guess you could say a sneak peek. And this particular home had some figurines. And I'm a musician. I was in band, and that's what I majored in college. And this particular person on their mantle had these gorgeous colonial type figurines. And there was one that was white porcelain, and it was a man and woman dressed up in colonial times, one of them playing the cello, I believe, and one playing the flute. And just to me, it was so beautiful and I loved it. And so I decided that I was going to bid on it, and whatever I would be getting paid that day, I would just lose it. I would use that money to pay for that figurine. Well, it was old. It went up for auction and it went too high. It went for more than I knew that I could pay. And so I didn't get it. And so the lady that was there bidding on it, it was someone that my stepdad knew. She owned an antique shop in Paris, Texas. And she examines it and she comes up and says, "Oh, it has a crack in it. I'm not going to take it." And of course, things like that would embarrass my stepdad because he tried to really have everything well prepared and have checked everything over real well. And so he said, "Well, folks, we're going to have to run it back through as is. So it went for $35. If I recall, the first time it went for like 60 or 65, and I knew that I would probably have about $50 to work with to pay for it. Now, I understand that this was back in the 80s, so $50 was a lot more than it is now. And if I recall correctly, I got it for $35, even with the crack in it. So we get it home, and of all things, it was a little tiny cobweb on it. It wasn't even cracked. And which is interesting that even that was on there because my stepdad was just such a tidy, organized person. He had everything looking really nice. And so he felt like he needed to tell the antique lady that was his friend the truth of the matter. And of course she said no, let her keep it. And she thought it was funny. But so that was just kind of a treasure to me. And then when I was a freshman in college, we had a fire at our home. We've had two family fires. This one was a smaller one, and the fire department got it out pretty quick, but it was in the upstairs of the home. And the neighbor lady came over and said, oh, is there anything I can do to help? And my mom remembered that figurine. It was the room that it was in had not burned, but of course, if you guys have ever dealt with a home fire, you know that everything is covered with soot and smoke and such. And so mom managed to get up the stairs and get that figurine, and it was covered in black. And my neighbor lady evidently worked for a long time with Q-tips and such, because she knew it was special to me, and probably was thinking before this all dries and sets on this, and she got it just looking perfect. And I still have that. Here we are, 40 years later, and it just came to my mind. Of course, I'm in the car and I don't have it right now, but I will show it to you guys. And anyway, that's just a story that came to my mind from our auction days. As I shared in a couple of earlier videos, I've been going through my climate-controlled storage unit, and I have 2 of these books from the Encyclopedia of Collectibles, and they're just so fascinating and interesting and educational. And I have the letter B book and the letter C book. So I've been slowly going through these books with you guys, and we're just going to go through a couple of the sections today. So the first category is children's books, which of all kinds, I guess, genres of books, I would say children's books are my favorites. I have childhood memories of it, and I've enjoyed reading to my children as they've grown up, and I still enjoy reading chapter books. So I thought we would go through some of these guys, and I'd love it if you guys would share some of your favorite children's books through the years. Aesop, I've always enjoyed Aesop's fables. I think probably the most famous one is The Tortoise and the Hare. Anyway, that's the one that comes to my mind. Some of these old books, the art on them the graphics are just really pretty. I love the colors. Hey diddle diddle. So beautiful. And here, this one's interesting. This is called The Nursery Alice, and it said it's a book from the Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, inspired from that. And then The Wizard of Oz. The movie The Wizard of Oz, I would say, is probably one of the most watched children's movies of all time. When I was growing up, it would come on every year on TV, and I would watch it. And I don't know about you guys, but those flying monkeys terrified me. I had a Grimm's Fairy Tales book when I was a little girl, and I would say that The Princess and the Pea was probably one of my favorites. The Last of the Mohicans. That book makes me think of the television series MASH. Hawkeye was called Hawkeye, he said, because his dad's favorite book was The Last of the Mohicans. And then we go into Chinese export porcelain. It's interesting that today, if we see that something was made in China, that means it's not very good quality. But, older Chinese art can be very, very, very valuable. So this is Chinese export porcelain, Oriental ware for Western taste. Man, isn't that just absolutely beautiful? I love the blue. Oh man, that's pretty. Very valuable. These are hundreds of years old, literally. And this is kind of an interesting thing right here. It says, the rich China trade. On Sun on Sunday last sailed from New York the ship Empress of China for Canton in China, announced a local paper in 1784. The captain and crew were all elated on being considered the first instruments in the hands of Providence who have undertaken to extend the commerce of the United States to that distant and to us unexplored country. By the 1820s, about 30 to 40 American ships a year were entering the Canton harbor, unloading American ginseng, furs, and silver coins, and taking on tea, silk, and export porcelain. The trade involved high risks and adventure, especially for the supercargoes. Americans importers representatives who went along. I'm trying to read through. I'm looking at this through the phone and trying to read it on my phone. Let me just look at it in person here. The trade involved high risks and adventure, especially for the supercargoes. American importers' representatives who went along with the ships on their year-long voyages. Business was rigidly supervised by agents of the Manchu rulers who feared their institutions were threatened by foreign devils. Western merchants were confined to a 1/4 mile long section of the waterfront where they lived and traded only with licensed hongs and their compradors or contact men. The visitors could not bring women with them, carry weapons, or even go rowing unsupervised. Nevertheless, many young Americans found China fascinating, and along with the goods they bought for their employers, they shopped privately for what one captain called the little elegancies of life, like those shown. While not as common as export porcelain, they too tempt collectors. Here's the port there. So I'm trying to block the glare from the sun. So this kind of got me to thinking, in the 1800s, the mid 1800s on into the 1900s, there's started being a lot of Christian missionaries go to China, and I really feel like probably this trade situation is what started opening up the doors for that to be possible for a period of time. I think of Hudson Taylor, who started the China Inland Mission, and he was responsible for hundreds of missionaries going to China. And then I think of Eric Liddell, which would most likely be the most likely that any of you would have heard of. He's who the movie Chariots of Fire was based on his life. He was the Olympian who refused to compete on Sundays. Well, he was a missionary in China, as were his parents. And then I think of Lottie Moon, and I'm Southern Baptist, so she's well known in Southern Baptist circles. She was a single woman who went to China and devoted her life there to the Chinese people. Hudson Taylor lived from 1832 to 1905, and he was from the UK, and he died in China. Eric Liddell lived from 1902 to 1945, so he had a short life. And Lottie Moon lived from 1840 to 1912. And if you're interested in those kinds of things, you can find all kinds of information about them online. And there's also several books about them. And they each lived very interesting lives and accomplished a lot of great things in their lives. Let's go on here and see. Man, aren't these beautiful, beautiful. Wow. A lot of these, when I looked on the date, it mentioned the 1700s. So pretty. Look at this one. It has a lid with it. Just so vivid and beautiful. It says this is the Manchu court. You'll see a lot of birds and butterflies, I've noticed, in this old Chinese art. This is called the 100 Butterflies pattern. And then we're on to Christmas tree ornaments, which we will do at a later time. I've been working on listing items on eBay today. I haven't done that in several days. And first of all is this new Mary Kay Botanicals Effects set. And this belongs to my daughter. And I'm going to be listing this for $59.99 plus shipping. And then Avon Naturals. These were in that climate control cosmetics storage unit that I've told you guys about. And it's this soap, which it's like an almond and oatmeal soap. And oh my gosh, it smells so good. It's an exfoliating soap. Then there's 5 different foam baths. Vanilla Fantasy, which smells so good. Passion fruit and pineapple. That one smelled really good too. Burgundy grape. And then I've got 2 of this jasmine and orange flower. Then there's 3 lotions. 2 of this one, water flowers. And that smelled so good. It smells kind of like a honeysuckle to me. And then this one is vanilla also, I think. Yeah, simply vanilla. And then this one is called, the lettering has gotten a little messed up, but this is called Around the World. And these are all from their Naturals line. And these are all vintage discontinued, but they're still great quality. And I'm also listing this whole set for $59.99. And then you guys may remember on one of my past videos, my son found these when he and his dad were moving some furniture to my husband's classroom. And they found these in a drawer. And there's a whole tub of them. I think I counted like 67 of them total. And I had been looking for this a while back when the new Barbie movie had come out, because I thought this would be the time to sell these. These are sealed from 2001. There's cherry punch, cosmic cotton candy, and blueberry slush. And there's numerous of each of these flavors. And it's duos of lip gloss and lip balm. And I only found one like this on Poshmark from the past, but I could not, oops, had an avalanche here. I could not get it to load to find out the price. So I know that these are rare and they are vintage. Anything over 20 years is now considered vintage. So they're rare, they're vintage, and they're Barbie. And so I'm going to just put just a set of 3 of them online on eBay for $24.99 for the set, plus shipping, and see how it turns out. And I've told you guys before, lots of the vintage makeups that are still in their packaging sell well and for good prices because there are collectors that want them. There are vintage makeup collectors, and this would actually probably, I would say, more likely a Barbie collector would want those. But I'm going to give it a try and see. Then this came with all those sealed breath sprays that I showed in a recent video. These are called Smints, and this is the old packaging. That these still exist, but this is not, but not in this exact graphic. And I listed these. They still have the mints in them, but this would be someone who collects things like this since it's discontinued design. I listed these for $9.99 plus shipping. And then some of these, I say I listed them. I've got them all photographed and I've decided on the price, but I'm not quite through with the listings yet. And then I don't think my sister really was into perfume and stuff much in her later years, but in her younger years, back when Avon was real popular and everybody had their favorite scent, hers was Amari. And I have this, and it's my sister that recently passed away. I have this Amari candle, and then an Amari gift set. It's the 0.33 ounce parfum and the body cream or skin softener, it's called sometimes. So I sold the set. I'm listing the set. I think I had decided for $29.99 plus shipping. I'll have to look back on that. But anyway, that's what my stuff I've been doing research on for today and photographing them and working toward getting these all listed on eBay. And that's that. You never know what I may be listing. I've got all kinds of different things. Well, guys, here is the gorgeous porcelain figurine, antique figurine that I was telling you guys about. It is so intricate. I've just been cleaning it, so I've even noticed again how intricate everything is, and I still need to do a little more. It has so many little details that it can catch dust in a lot of places, so I still am needing to do a little bit more cleaning. But look at her hair, her little bows. Look how delicate, how beautifully and intricately this is done. There's her cello. Their hands are so well done. Even the pegs on the cello. The ruffles on their clothing. Buttons. Look at their shoes. Look at this scalloped waviness here. So lovely. It's probably maybe 10 inches tall, 10 or 11 inches tall. There's the marking on the bottom of it. I'm not even sure of the value of this now. It probably is not as quite as valuable as it was even when I purchased it back in the 80s. Now, let me make this clear. I'm not selling this, and to me, it's it's a treasure. So the value doesn't matter. But what I was going to try to explain is one of the reasons it cost so much initially at the auction was this was in the 80s, the earlier 80s, and we were just coming off the bicentennial in 1776. So, you think about bicentennial quarters, and of course my school at Soper had a big 200-year celebration, but also there was a really renewed interest in colonial things. Many people had colonial decor in their homes. And one of the most popular magazines was called Colonial Homes. And I remember my mother and I buying it, and we just loved it. So people were really interested in this type of stuff. And this being old, porcelain, large, so intricately done, it was pretty valuable then, and it still may be, but I don't think right now there's that much interest in colonial type things like there was then. Now, here in a couple of years, we are going to be having our 250-year anniversary of our country, so I kind of expect there to be a resurgence of that type things, but not that that really matters at all. This is just something that I have had, that I've treasured now for over 40 years. And somehow it has made it through raising 5 children, 3 of which were rowdy boys, and several moves that we've had. And, when we would move, I would be so nervous that it was going to get broken. So I didn't even want to trust to pack it up in a box for someone else to move the box. So I would wrap it up real good and put it in the floorboard of whatever vehicle I was driving to our next move. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed my story about this. And I've had it put up, and where the last place that we lived, the last two places that we lived, I had a really nice wooden shelf that had glass fronted doors on it that I kept it in, and I think that's what kept it safe through my boys growing up. But when we moved out here to the lake, we no longer had that shelf, and I've kept it put up. I don't really feel like I have a safe place to put it out right now, especially now that I'm getting grandbabies on the scene. But anyway, thank you guys for letting me share about this. So ever since the other day in my last video when I was talking about my family when I was growing up would once in a while go to Long John Silver's, and then how much my sister liked Long John Silver's, especially their coleslaw. I've just been craving it ever since then, so I stopped and got me some. It's not something I eat very often, for obvious reasons. It's probably not the healthiest with the deep fried things, but it sure looks good, and I'm thankful to have it. And they have a new look. You know, for decades and decades, it was the yellow cups and containers, and it's blue and white. I really like the new look.